program, as I mentioned, it started with OU Wales, and the aim for that was to enhance the transition experiences for further education students in Wales to either higher education or the job market. And this initiative aligned with the Renew and Reform policy in Wales, which was focusing on post-16 and transition plan of the Welsh government. The program was mainly using OpenLearn resources, the OpenSTEM lab, and it developed different workshops and talks from by OU guest speakers on different topics and areas that were of interest to the colleges or the further education in general. And for this program, all 12 colleges in Wales participated. So alongside this basic program, there was an enhanced version of the program, and that gave us the National Enrichment Program enhanced version. For this enhanced version, the Open University in Wales received money from HEFCO, and we had 6 colleges participating. And as part of this funding, we gave some extra resource for the participating college staff so that they can work on implementing the program in the different colleges. Alongside the implementation in colleges, there was some OU training and support, which was tailored to each college. And this particular enhanced version focused on developing post-16 skills, focusing on disadvantaged students and the well-being of further education students in general. So this is a snapshot from the OpenLearn page, which was the landing page for the program. I had also put a QR code. It didn't start like that. This is the final version because during this 1.5 years, we kept receiving feedback from the evaluations, and every time we were changing things in the program. As you can see on the right side of the screen, there is a list with courses, and these were categorized. They include OpenLearn courses and other resources, and they were categorized based on what colleges were interested in, or youth focusing courses, or Welsh specific courses. So as I mentioned earlier, we had 6 colleges participating, and each one of the colleges decided to implement the program in a different way, in a way that it fits with the college structure or the aims of the college. I tried to summarize the four different types here of the implementation. So the first type, colleges had dedicated time for the program at hubs or labs, and these were supported by facilitators who were in the labs, and there were structured timetable slots every week. So students had to book and go there every week and do something in relation to the program. But of course, they were free to select whatever courses they wanted from OpenLearn. So the program was compulsory and was centralized. But you know, the selection was optional. The second type, they had tutorials on a weekly basis by progress coaches, and there was an effort to embed selected OpenLearn courses into the main curriculum. The program overall was optional for students. They didn't have to follow it, and it was centralized since the college decided which courses they will be giving to students. The third type, there was a tutor selection of courses according to themes that the colleges have every month. But these were kind of, it depended on the tutor whether the courses will be optional or not. So it was up to the tutor whether the students will have to follow the courses and which courses. And the final type, in this one, tutors and students could select courses, and the courses were used as time fillers or boosters in individual learning plans. So the optionality depended on the tutor and then on the student, and it was decentralized since tutors and students decided which courses they will follow from the program. So the aims of the evaluation, were mainly 4 or 5, but I will focus on the first 4 in this presentation. The first aim was to understand how students engaged in the program. What were students' experiences of the program? The third one was about what were colleges' experiences. And the fourth one was how we can improve the program. The fifth one is more relevant to each type of implementation, but we haven't looked at it yet specifically. So to answer these questions, we first try to understand colleges' experiences, how they implemented the program, what were the benefits and challenges for colleges, what resources and tools they used. And for that, we ran college staff interviews. We ran 2 of them, one at the beginning of the program to get some early insights and one at the end of the program. Always talking about the enhanced version, which only ran for last year. The second part was to understand students' expectations and satisfaction, and we used student surveys for that, the pre-survey and the post-survey, and these were to help us understand whether they were aware of the program, what were their expectations, what were their motivations for joining further education, and whether they felt to be self-efficient with online learning. And these are mainly because we saw from literature that this can be relevant in the way students use open learning resources. And finally, we asked them their satisfaction with the resources and any suggestions. The final thing was that we looked at their actual participation using OpenLearn log data. I am going to start with the OpenLearn log data, and this is how the log data sheet looked like. We didn't have a lot of information. This is as much as we could get, but we could see which students actually registered, what courses they joined, and the dates of enrollment and completion. So there were 2 registration forms. There was one for the program and one for OpenLearn. For the program, we had 1,111 registered students, but from those, only 139 actually logged in with the OpenLearn platform, and these were the only ones we could actually monitor and see what they were doing. For the analysis, we mainly used visualization of this data. So to start with, in relation to enrollment and completion, as I mentioned, we had 139 students, and the majority of them joined a single course. But as you can see, there were others who joined 2, 3, or even 8 and more courses. And 61 registered students completed at least one of these courses. But we had others who completed 2, 3, or even 4 or more. So what kind of courses? Students enrolled on 193 different courses. Here I have only added the first 10 most popular, and the most popular one was exercise and mental health. But just to remind you that the selection wasn't always up to students. So this has nothing to do most of the times with student preference. It could have been the college preference or their tutor's preference. Exercise and mental health was a generic course, but students overall also engaged with more youth-focused courses, like courses that have to do with managing money, or job-seeking courses to find ways to improve their interview skills if they are going for a job interview. But there were many subject-specific courses as well, as you can see. For the surveys, as I mentioned, we ran a pre-survey and the post-survey. For the pre-survey, we looked at what level the students were, whether they were aware of the program. And here we will focus on what they expected from the program and what their personal circumstances are. And in the post-surveys I mentioned, we looked at their motivations for joining further education and their self-efficacy with online learning. Also, we looked at their open learn experience and their overall experience with the program and suggestions. We had in total 74 and 184 students participating in pre-survey and post-survey respectively, and we analyzed those using visualizations of the Likert scales, descriptive statistics. We looked at how the different scales correlate, and we did some content analysis of the open-ended responses. So what did students expected from their involvement with the open educational resources? We offered them a multiple choice questionnaire with many statements, and these statements, we took them from a pilot we had with the basic version of the program. So as you can see from the graph, the top one, to advance in my studies, was the most selected expectation, and that was followed by becoming a more well-rounded student and helping them making informed decisions about their future. Other expectations were about gaining insights into university life, assisting them to determine their field of study, gaining a deeper understanding of themselves, and helping them to make confident choices about their area of study. Many of them were not sure or didn't have specific expectations, but that was kind of expected since some colleges made this compulsory, so they had no other option. Personal circumstances, just an overview. Most of the learners were studying full-time. There were 8 learners who were studying full-time and at the same time were working part-time. And of these students who were studying full-time, there were also 2 who had caring responsibilities. So this is an idea of what kind of difficulties some of the college students may have to face while doing their program and looking at the open educational resources as well. So looking at the post-survey and trying to understand why did they join further education, as you can see in the graph, the one at the bottom is the most popular motivation, and it's about entering the job market in a field they like. But there were other motivations like joy, feeling joy when they learn things, better preparing for a career they chose, obtaining a more prestigious job. As you can see, because this is a standardized questionnaire, we also group these motivations in different categories. And the most selected category was identified regulation that has to do with internalized external motivations, for example, entering the job market and preparing for a career. And the second most popular was about pleasure in learning. And then we also had external motivations as one of the popular motivations, for example, obtaining a more prestigious job. Looking at the different student demographics, there were differences between groups when it comes to motivations, and these were mainly focusing on differences between sex, like female students were more interested in intrinsic motivations. There were differences between students in different age. Those receiving the education maintenance allowance and ethnicities. And then there were some less than 14% of the students were lacking motivation. So looking at the self-efficacy in online learning, as I mentioned before, we use a standardized questionnaire, and some main categories were about self-efficacy with technology learning, using learning technology to learn, self-efficacy in learning online in general, and some time management. As you can see, in a scale of 1 to 6, it was moderate to good. The self-efficacy in technology and learning was moderate to good. Time management was a bit less, but not that bad. So there was a weak positive correlation between learning self-efficacy in online learning and age. But bear in mind that we didn't have very old students. They were like up to 25 or 30 years old. So the correlation was up to that, from 16 to 25 years old. And there were no differences between any other groups. So to understand what was their experience with using the OpenLearn platform, we ran a standardized scale again, which we had piloted in the basic version of the program. And that scale included statements for the usability of the platform and the usefulness of the platform. As you can see, in a scale of 1 to 5, the usability was 386, which was moderate to good. The usefulness, the same, a bit less. And what we found out from the correlations and examining the different factors was that students who received the education maintenance allowance, which is an allowance in Wales for less advantaged students, were more likely to face difficulties in using the platform. Students with increased external regulation, so those whose motivations were about better salary, prestigious job, they were more likely to find the platform usable and useful. And also students who had increased self-efficacy in online learning were more likely to find OpenLearn usable and useful. And this was quite interesting for the colleges as well, to help them understand whereabouts they should focus, what kind of support systems they should have in place, which students will need more support to engage in this kind of program. So some open responses we had from students about their experience focused on different areas, including skill enhancement. They thought it was good to help them learn new skills or to advance their existing skills through the practical assignments and quizzes they had. There were comments about academic career advancement. So students told us that it helped them to decide which university courses they want to do, or it just given them the chance to study something, but for free, which may not have had the chance to do otherwise, or a combination of both. Someone said that it helped them to improve their skills while adding another qualification into their CVs. Another theme was about interest and curiosity. Students said that it broadened their knowledge of the outside world and it helped them to feed their curiosity. And another theme was about motivation. Students mentioned that it made them to be more determined and motivated for education. Then there were some more generic comments about the platform. So students thought that the OpenLearn was a very comprehensive platform, and it had a huge amount of knowledge about many topics. And it was easy to follow with resources that were breaking down into reasonable sections. Now, some suggestions for improvement. Many students wanted to have a more personalized course that is more relevant to what they are studying. So like a pathway with what kind of resources they should be using according to their needs and preferences. And some other students kind of complained because they couldn't find something subject specific on OpenLearn that is relevant to their studies. Another theme was about receiving more enhanced content support, mainly from colleges. So they thought they would need something that wraps the resources. It creates excitement, creativity, it stimulates them. Some of them were confused what they were supposed to do with the resources. And some others, they thought that they would like to have more manageable chunks of the resources instead to be given the entire course to study. So some NEP stories. from students. The first story is about pursuing business aspirations. So this is Angela. She's at level 2 hairdressing. She's 18 years old and she's receiving the education maintenance allowance. She studies full-time, works part-time, and she would like to obtain a more prestigious job and receive a better salary. So she reported to be good at handling online technologies, and she was satisfied with the usability and usefulness of OpenLearn. She was particularly interested in business course, and she actually enrolled and completed the course Entrepreneurship from Ideas to Reality. And she reported that her involvement in the program opens for her new opportunities. A second story is about enhancing well-being and self-accomplishment. And this is Maria. She's 19 years old. She's a higher education student studying illustration. Her main motivations are about pleasure, self-accomplishment, and career. She said to have a poor performance with technologies, but she said that she knows how to ask for help and she has good time management. Maria was satisfied with the usability and usefulness of the platform. She enrolled on 2 courses and she finished the course exercise and mental health courses, mental health by the time of the evaluation. And she reported that she particularly enjoyed this course because it helped her to learn more ways to keep herself feeling good. And this third story is a bit different. It's about navigating challenges. So we have Petros, who is 16, and he's studying at level 2 mixed media. He studies full-time and works part-time, and his main motivation is about learning new things, personal accomplishment, and preparing for a career. He reported to be good at searching the internet, using email to contact his tutors, but less good at completing entire projects online or searching via online libraries. So Petros reported that the OpenLearn content was relevant to his interest, but he found it difficult to navigate the browser, and he was forgetting about his studies and asking for help. He enrolled on the course How to Learn a Language, and he thought that they should be receiving more skills courses and OpenLearn courses because he struggles to study at home by himself. So these are 3 stories from students, and that was the side of student evaluation. Moving on to the college evaluation, we had, as I mentioned, we done 2 rounds of interviews, one at the start and one at the end of the project. At the start, we had all the participating colleges. At the end, we only had 5 out of 6. And we focused on how colleges implemented the program, how they supported the program, what were the benefits and challenges of the program, what was the participation like, what was the evaluation like, and what resources and tools they used. So to go through the implementation, as we mentioned earlier, there were different types of implementation. So some use physical hubs, others integrated resources into the main program, some used a mixture of face-to-face and online approaches. Some colleges made it compulsory, others optional, others involved tutors. There was a selection, there was a preference towards youth-focused courses and the use of bottom-up, what is already there, and the top-down, what is the theme of the month approach. And there were different type of students involved in each college, either further education, higher education, or also struggling students or students that were very likely to go to university. To introduce the program, they use various methods from in-person tutorials to digital inductions. And there were some implementation decisions taking place, like capping a class size, reducing previously scheduled time on the program activities, introducing new roles to support the project. And many of them thought that they will keep reusing the NEP resources after the end of the funded period. To support the NEP, the colleges with the funding they received, they introduced specific roles. like the Success Hub staff or progress coaches, and they adjusted responsibilities in relation to the program. Some of them involved academic colleges, academic staff as well. Colleges welcome sharing good practices, but they didn't really engage with other colleges to see what they were doing, apart from the opportunities that the Open University gave them for knowledge exchange. And all colleges were happy with the OU support. They thought that we had close and regular communication, problem solving. The OU was responsive and had frequent updates. Some areas of improvement suggested for the Open University was to share reports about module registration more frequently, because we were the only ones holding the Open Learn data. And some issues that there were during the program were mainly about colleges changing roles and having to recruit new staff for the program, which that caused some delays of the program as well. So some benefits of the program, and that's emerged list from the initial and the final interviews. In relation to college advantages, the colleges thought it's good for the workload of colleges because it was helping them to produce tutorials faster and trusted tutorials with trusted resources. It was easier to promote study independence in students, and it was a tool to validate professional body accreditations. When it comes to student advantages, according to colleges, the Open Learn resources help students to develop independence and confidence. It kept them interested during the summer break. It enhanced their CVs and LinkedIn profiles. It was used to tailor modules to individual learners. They were accessible resources. They could support help in well-being and mental health. It stretched students' abilities. It motivated vulnerable students. It helped progression and moving to higher education. And it was a good resource for PGC students. Some challenges. Some students had poor motivation to log in. So some suggestions was to have more practical activities and completion certificates. Some had limited attention span and busy schedules, so it was difficult to follow the program alongside their regular curriculum, and there were many reminders needed. Some complained that it was a trap to engage with Open Learn, because if you want to move on, you have to pay a fee. And also tutors were sometimes busy and difficult to engage. Some challenges were about timing. Colleges played around the right time to introduce the program to avoid exam and summer terms. And they were trying to introducing in the middle of the academic year, but they were worried that they may not be able to complete. Choosing the resources was also difficult, and this is why we introduced the list I showed you with categories of courses. And there were some recruitment challenges, delays, changing roles, and newly appointed staff. Participation in the NEP. So the colleges found different ways to engage students in the program. And they were trying to do that, avoiding conflicts with students who thought they were already overloaded. So they were trying to aim at student personal motivations. They were using badges, certificates, rewards, and they were trying to make things more personalized. And the ways they monitor student engagement, because they didn't have access to Open Learn data, some of them, they were trying to integrate the program into their own VLE so that they can track participation from there. Evaluation of the Open Learn, it was in general positive. There were some things to improve, like the registration reports by the Open University. And some issues were mainly in relation to tutor workload. And then other things is that the evaluation was helping the program to improve all the time because there were new challenges and new opportunities coming up. So student feedback, what we heard from colleges about student feedback was that they benefited from the program. There was an interest from colleges to run more in-house evaluations in the future once the program is finished, but they weren't sure how to do that, some of them, because students are not very responsive. And some others suggested that they could measure the success of the program by looking at how many UCAS applications will be out when the academic year is finished. And finally, looking at resources and tools, the colleges use different types of resources from their own VLEs. Some of them lent laptops to students so that they can engage in the program. And then there were some tool issues and upgrades, and these were relevant to recording registration numbers mainly and tracking the completion of the modules. So some reflections from our participants. There was some positive feedback. Students and tutors thought that the program can be used for skill enhancement and academic career advancement. It can foster interest, curiosity, motivation, determination, and they thought that the platform, the OpenLearn, was user-friendly, it facilitated engaging and accessible learning experiences. Some areas of improvement in relation to the program design was to have more personalized courses, some pathway to courses, and some student support, more individualized. Some other area of improvement was about engaging students and find a way to monitor what they are doing. Another point was about streamlining processes so they don't waste time on recruitment and placing people at the right spot, and some staff workload concerns. So some recommendations in relation to motivation was to find a way to address motivations around future careers and joy of learning when they decide to implement when they decide how to implement the program. It was to personalize the path, to offer resources relevant to individual study subjects, career goals, personal interests, to make students more engaged. In relation to format and flexibility, to provide a mix of short and long courses for the different preferences, and to go beyond the course suggestion to give students some pathways with personalized resources that will help them address their personal individual needs. And another point was about support and training. So students ask for more support, and then this support should come with more clear instructions, what you're supposed to do with the resources, additional resources to make it more interesting and more relevant, interactive opportunities so that students feel all well supported. Then it was about to equip staff for personalization, to train the tutors as to how they can use the open educational resources to meet their class needs, and to integrate the frontline tutors. As we mentioned earlier, there were issues with the workload because the tutors who were trying to teach this material, they were given this as something extra and not as part of their workload, and they were not paid extra for that. So there were issues as to how and whether they could actually use it. And finally, in relation to communication and collaboration, it was to keep the dialogue open because these programs are live and they keep changing, the circumstances keep changing. So it was a suggestion to establish platforms for tutors and staff to do some knowledge exchange and to share the different stories they have, so that one story can complement the other and provide solutions for that. And thank you very much, and apologies.